Hey everyone, I decided to take a slightly different approach with this video. I wanted to go more into the problem that I've seen lately, and really over the past couple of years, where nobody wants you to do your own homework. Nobody wants you to look into things for yourself. Nobody wants you to trust the scholarly sources that you can look into on your own, which are the same scholarly sources that they would use or their experts would use. So the phrase that you hear the most common with this kind of thing is like it's insulting. It really, really is, because you keep hearing over and over, "Oh, don't do your own research." So you have to trust the experts. Don't do your own research. I'm sorry, but that's extremely insulting, because when you tell me don't do my own research or don't do my own homework or don't, when you tell me that, that conveys to me that you feel like I have no critical thinking ability. You think I'm dumb, or at the very least not as intellectual maybe as you are, that you are intellectually superior to me. And an extension of that, then you also believe that you are morally superior to me as well, because you know better, you know right from wrong better than I do. So, yeah, in various ways, it is extremely insulting to tell someone to not do their own research, and just intellectually insulting as well, because if you don't do your research, what are you doing? Just following anything, you know? So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Wanted to show you what I have personally studied in order to really get to know that the carnivore diet was the right diet for me. Now, I will start off by saying, for the algorithms and everything, for disclaimer purposes, that you should not make any huge dietary changes without consulting your physician first. I can't give medical advice. I'm not a doctor. All those sorts of things. This is for entertainment value only. Okay, so that out of the way. Getting right back into it. When uh, when people told me not to do my own research, that's the moment I decided I'm going to do my own research. All right. Now, I do have an idea of where some of them are coming from when they say don't do your own research, because they feel that research, or when people do their own research, they go and watch YouTube videos and say, oh, so and so said this or so and so said that. And that's the extent of it. And you know what? Quite frankly, yeah, that's the way that most people probably do their own research, is by looking up people that they trust on YouTube. Now, don't get me wrong. I follow, guys like, Dr. Philip Avadia. I follow, Anthony Chaffee. I'm sorry, I'm messing that up. Uh, Sean Baker. I follow Ken Berry, and all the rest. And yes, they have amazing things to say, and I haven't found anything wrong with what they've said so far, but not because I just feel like they're right, or I feel like something's wrong, or anything like that. No, I actually go into, well, first off, I appreciate the fact that they cite sources. So they will have a link to the government study, or whatever study it is, a funded study that shows whatever it is that they're trying to purport. So I'll go ahead and look into those studies. Then I'll go and continue that path. I won't just look at that study, but I'll look at other studies that are related to that study, and then I just kind of continue on from there. So I'm going to walk you through my process on how I figured out that the carnivore diet was the right diet for every cell in the body. Again, for YouTube purposes, for me, but I don't see why not for you too. Seems to be like just about everybody. Well, okay, I'll be careful. Not everybody, but the majority of people jumping onto carnivore seems to do a lot better health-wise than before they were on it, or when they say go back to a standard way of eating, like a standard American diet or a SAD diet, SAD for short. All right, so here's what I mean by doing your own research. What does that mean? Well, that means that you want to look into, like, you're going to school for yourself on your own time, on your own dime. This is exactly what I did. You know what? Before I get into that, I'm just going to say why I did this. See, I did this and I went this route because my doctors couldn't help me for over 20 years. I was going to my doctors basically to placate them and for medication to ease my symptoms. That's basically all I went to the doctor for. Anything else they said was kind of in one ear out the other because they didn't know most of what I was going through and they didn't know how to fix it. They only knew how to throw pills at it. So just ease symptoms, to the point, like I said in another video, where I was taking 7 medications 3 times daily just to manage symptoms. I'm on 0 now. So here's how that happened. I decided to ask questions. Not questions of the doctors, although I did ask them questions, and eventually I learned what the better questions are to ask them. That'll probably be another video. Um, but yeah, I did my own research. I asked myself these questions, and any questions I did not 100% know the answer to, I went and looked it up. I went and found a textbook. I went and found a study. I went and found multiple studies. I found meta studies. I've looked through medical journals. I looked through testimonials. I looked through, groups and their experiences. And anyway, so I'm going to give you a nice healthy list right now, which maybe at some point I'll turn into like a PDF download or something if there's enough people interested. Here's all the things that I learned on my own to improve my health. All right. Number one, I studied the digestive system because I was having internal issues. So gastrointestinal issues and that. So I studied the digestive system, basically nose to tail. Okay. How it comes in, what happens to the process as it goes in and through, and then out the other side. I learned about the nervous system, how it's all connected. Again, head to tail. So basically, how every bit is affected from the brain all the way down to your feet. And, the reactions, responses, electrical impulses, how that happens, what can kind of hinder those things, what can enhance those things, and all those sorts of things as well. You'll learn about muscular health. Okay, so you learn about how the muscles function, how they operate, what they feed on. There are some myths on what they feed on, but there's muscular health, skeletal health. One of the major things that I learned as far as skeletal health is that that the healthier your bones are, the healthier your immune system is because it comes partly from the bone marrow. It's a response that comes from there to go ahead and attack certain ailments and things. Skin health. So learned about skin health. I've suffered with dry skin most of my life, so I learned what causes that. What kind of things can prevent that? What is the body looking for when it's dry? It's obviously missing something. So what is that? I studied every single prescription that I was given, every prescription that I was on, what they were meant to do, what the side effects were of those, what potential side effects would be, why those side effects would be the side effects that they are, what else they affect that is not directly related to the thing that I'm taking the medication for, and if there's any way to reproduce that beneficial result without any of the side effects. And eventually I found, yes, there is. What happens to molecules of food or drugs when you consume them? So I'm not talking about what happens, to you generally when you eat fat, when you eat carbs, when you eat sugar, when you eat protein. No, I'm going deeper than that. Say when it breaks down, when the food breaks down into glucose and then down into the carbons in the water and all that kind of stuff. Exactly what happens to every bit of that process and how does that process through your body. So you want to learn about that. You want to learn about how your cells actually get energy. The common mantra is the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? Well, there's way more to it than that, which I have a lot of questions here to go through. So again, that'll probably be another video. Um, why don't you have the energy that you're hoping to have right now? What is causing you to be lethargic? Those sorts of things. So you want to, look into that. What's causing that? Again, it comes down to energy. Is there anything stopping energy from getting to or being released from your cells? Because sometimes we have energy in our cells, but it doesn't come out. By the way, that's essentially what fat is. Adipose tissue, fat is, belly fat, things like that as we, grow wider, in that regard, is that's stored energy like a battery waiting to burn, but it's not burning. It's not, we're not utilizing that energy. So how do we, make that happen? What happens to fat when it burns? What is fat? And does it actually burn? You know, what happens? How does it, leave our systems? Long story short, by the way, a lot of our fat leaves our body by breathing. That comes out in our breath because, again, of the molecular breakdown of how it all comes apart. So our body uses it for multiple purposes, and then what's left over, it comes out kind of a split, between the urine and our breath. Like we actually burn a lot of fat while we're sleeping, even if we're a larger person. Uh, this was a big one for me, where does pain come from? The pain response, the pain signaling. How does your body, how does your mind process it as pain? How does your brain process that as pain? How can pain be controlled in your body, whether pharmaceutically or otherwise? And if it is pharmaceutically, what exactly are those pharmaceuticals doing in your body that is causing you to feel that pain less? And can you reproduce that naturally? What is inflammation? I used to think inflammation was, I scratched myself and there's, oh, my skin is a little bit red in that spot. I used to think that was inflammation, but inflammation goes a lot deeper than that. Inflammation actually causes a lot of times, fat gain. That's what I dealt with for years. Are there foods that increase or decrease our inflammation? So you want to get to know that, look into that. Here's a big one because it affects millions of people worldwide. Are there foods, what is diabetes? What is it? Basically, it's sugar dysregulation. Your body can't process sugar the right way, or glucose, I should say. By the way, sugar breaks down to glucose, carbohydrates break down to glucose. So it never made sense to me why the Diabetes Association would recommend carbohydrates as part of the diet for diabetics, because there are millions. Well, okay, I'm not going to say that because I'll say there are at least thousands. Anyway, there are many, 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 many type 1 and type 2 diabetics on either a ketogenic or a carnivore. We're doing very, very well in controlling their blood sugars and things, because quite frankly, you know, we only need in our bodies like 4 grams of glucose in order to run our whole system, and anything more than that is just extra. So that never made sense to me. Why carbohydrates? All right. So is too much glucose bad? Why glucose bad? You get to learn those things. What is cholesterol? Right? What happens to cholesterol? How do we get it? How does it enter the body, leave the body? By the way, here's another fun fact. Your body makes 75% of the cholesterol that is in your body. The other 25% is dietary. Not only that, but things like fat intake and cholesterol intake have, they used to have recommended like caps and limits on them when it comes to the CDC, the American Heart Association, but those limits no longer exist. They've quietly republished articles to say that there's no limit on it because they actually don't have a negative impact on your health. All right, what is good versus bad cholesterol? Is LDL actually bad cholesterol? Short answer is no, only when it's oxidized. So what is oxidation? What is the lipid or the heart health hypothesis? Who is Ansel Keys? Ansel Keys was one of the major contributors in duping the world about the effects of cholesterol. Cholesterol does not cause heart disease. It's actually sugar that does. Does the body even need LDL? Is LDL beneficial in any way? Answer is yes. The LDL actually, among other things, breaks down viruses, bacteria, basically rips them apart at the protein level, kind of reconfigures them, redistributes them, makes them into other things. So this is why if you jump into the carnivore forums, you're going to find out, and groups, you're going to find out that these people really don't get sick much. They might from time to time, but it's not like before. Like, I used to get sick with every change of the seasons. I'm almost a year on carnivore now, and I haven't been sick yet. So I'm not going to say I'm not going to get sick, but I would have been sick probably at least 5 or 6 times by now, every time the season changed or something like that. Not to mention I spent a lot of time with my kids who spent a lot of time in public school. So, and I work with kids in public schools during the day, during the week, a lot of times. So positive benefits to LDL. You want to learn about lipid particle size. Lipids, those are the fats, those are the cholesterol, right? Related to that. You want to learn what is oxidative stress. You've heard of antioxidants. Well, what does that mean? What are antioxidants supposed to do? And is there a way that you can be healthy without having to take antioxidants? Answer is yes. So go ahead and learn what that is. How exactly do arteries get damaged? How does plaque build up in the arteries? What is a calcium score? Here's a big question that we should be asking ourselves, especially with Alzheimer's and dementia being now called and referred to as diabetes type 3, because people are realizing that this is a deeper glucose dysregulation, kind of a step beyond the diabetes type 2. So why, ask yourself, and ask Google and ask DuckDuckGo, or just ask reliable sources when you look at that. Why do people on statins suffer from brain-related problems, but regain their mental cognition when they get off of statins? That happens all the time, and there are studies based on that. Look up the studies. What is relative versus real risk? Okay, well, I'll give you an example of this. As far as statins, they will advertise that the statins will be immensely more valuable to you and give you a much, much, much greater chance of staying away from coronary disease than if you didn't take the statin. So you think, oh wow, okay, so if I take statins, I'm going to live a lot longer. I'm going to have a much more healthy and productive life. However, when they've come right down to it, and Dr. Anthony Chaffee has some studies on this and videos on it, I think the average life expectancy for a person with statins versus without statins is maybe an increase of about 5 days of life. 5 days. To get 5 days. Okay, might be nice, but it's 5 days. I don't know. Why take all the negative effects that statins will give you? So why degrade your life? Why make your life harder, more challenging? Why basically tear down your mental cognitive skills and your ability, as the statins ultimately do, for 5 days? I don't see the sense. When did everybody and their mother start developing all these major health conditions, and what changed in our food production that might contribute to that? Okay, short answer here is fat and red meat were deemed unworthy and sugar was elevated. Notice it's almost impossible to get anything without sugar. Even when you buy table salt, it has dextrose in it. Anything with an OSE, that's sugar. Lactose is a form of sugar. Dextrose is sugar. I wind up using Redmond's real salt, has 0 sugar, no dextrose. Why do drug makers dishonestly market relative risk as real risk? We addressed that with the statin issue. Now, what actually happens to your body's cells when protein gets digested? How about sugar or fat or carbs or anything else that goes into your body? Is protein essential? Are carbs essential? Is sugar essential? Is fat essential? Look those up. Let's see, what are the long-term experiences of junk food eaters? How about people who only eat whole foods? How about people on keto or the Mediterranean diet or vegan diet or carnivore or Atkins or paleo or raw diet? See who's gone long-term. And by long-term, I don't mean 5 years, I mean 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Find out what their experiences are. See if there are any studies related to that, the long-term. Do the studies comport with or diverge from real lived experiences? And then why the discrepancy, if there's any? Well, as we know, the sugar industry recently admitted, they put out the paper and they released the documentation that proved that the sugar industry many years ago, I believe it was back in the 50s, I'll have to go back into research on that one, they paid off Harvard professors to dupe the world into believing that cholesterol was the cause of heart disease when it was actually sugar, because they wanted to increase profitability. So this is not conspiracy, nothing like that. This is actually documented. Like, this really actually did happen. Then what happened was, for the last 70 years, we've been blaming cholesterol for what sugar's been doing to us. And now sugar is in everything. And everything you eat is sugar, from Cheerios to wheat thins to everything else, table salt, like I mentioned before. All right. What are the long-term pros and cons of every diet? What do the naysayers of every diet have to say about it, and are they credible? Here's something that a lot of people on both sides will maybe forget to do or not do. And it's one thing that I looked into before going on the carnivore diet. Is I said, okay, how about people who are having bad experiences with it? What are they going through, and why are they experiencing that? So I had to look into that and say, okay, well, based on what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're going about it, does that make sense? And I've seen a lot of videos, and I can go through videos in the future if you'd like, to talk about some of the naysayers and what might have gone wrong. Sometimes it is very rare, but sometimes the physiology actually can't do that. You have to do something else, which is not optimal, but if the body can't do it, it can't do it. But for the majority of people, I believe this is the way to go. Again, not a doctor, can't tell you what to do or not do. What are the rebuttals to those arguments, and are they credible? Are there any biases built into any of the research that you approach? As I read through a lot of these studies, they would come to conclusions that are the polar opposite of what their study actually showed. So I would see a lot of language in the abstracts, that would say something like, this study showed X, when we already know that Y happens and not X. So we have to find out what variable caused X. It's like, no. You're building an assumption into the study based on research that was done 70 years ago without, when we didn't have the technology available to really parse this out the way that we do now. So you should maybe go into your study, check it out, forget about your biases, do another study, do a follow-up study. And guess what? If the results are the same and they continue on, which when you look through various studies, they tend to do, in favor of, say, a ketogenic or carnivore diet, it winds up being that much more proven that it's the way to go. It's a natural human diet. Who authored the research I have access to? Who funded the research? Yeah, here's another fun one. Because you'll find that a lot of the studies that will put cholesterol in the negative light and put sugar in a positive light. Kellogg's, Post, General Mills. These companies are funding a lot of the studies. So what do you think the studies are going to say? I'll just leave it at that. Are there any conflicts of interest? Okay, don't have to go further with that. Now here's a big question, especially for doctors. If certain foods have been proven to heal, why do doctors immediately prescribe medicines before even attempting to change your nutrition? Those 7 medications I was taking 3 times daily, apparently I didn't have to take them. I jumped in the carnivore diet. In less than a year, I got rid of all of them. I don't have to take any of them anymore. So all of my symptoms could have been gone over 20 years ago. I could have had a normal, happy, healthy, productive life 20 years ago, 23 years ago, and onward, without any of those medications, without ever needing those medications. So that's something that angers me, but at the same time, I'm grateful I'm learning what I learned now. But it angers me about the health industry and how medical doctors are taught in the schools. They're taught to prescribe. They're taught about the diseases and conditions, but they're taught they teach you how to mask the symptoms with medication. They don't teach you how to heal the symptoms. They don't teach you how to reverse the symptoms. They don't teach you a cure. They don't. What's that phrase? Because basically the phrase I was trying to think of for a moment, it basically says, a cured patient is no longer a patient or something like that. So they're not getting your money anymore once you're healed, once you're healthy and well. That's why it's a multi-billion-dollar industry today. So who developed the food pyramid? Get to know that. And why? Why was it developed? How was it developed? What went into its development? Dr. Anthony Chafee has a lot of videos on that as well. Why doesn't medical school spend more than 25 hours studying nutrition, according to Harvard? Again, you look through the course material, only 25 hours are dedicated to nutrition, so it's kind of like a glanced sort of a thing, and then they move on to the rest of the medical degree, 8 years. So why don't they study more than that, especially since everybody knows that changing your diet changes your health. You know if you eat something, if you're going to be better as a result or worse off as a result. And why don't most doctors know the answers to the majority of these questions that I just asked? So I think I'm going to make a PDF out of this. I don't have a website or anything like that yet, for Carnivore or anything like that. But I don't know. I might throw something together just to be able to share a PDF with you guys of these questions, because they're really, really good questions. They can keep you on track as far as studying these sorts of things and getting to know the body and what's going on. So that said, I'm going to bring it right back to what I was saying in the beginning. When somebody says I'm telling you do your own research. But when somebody says don't do your own research, just laugh at them and do your own research. Because by not doing my own research, I was on a path where I was going to die early. I know I was going to die early because I had problems that were keeping me bedridden, keeping me from being able to be with my family, keeping me from being there with my kids and with my wife. And I mean, sure, I was physically a log on the bed in the house, but I wasn't able to be a good father, a good husband, anything like that. And toward the end of the year leading up to me jumping into the carnivore diet, I actually really thought I was going to die because no doctors were able to help me, and I was getting worse and worse. I couldn't eat. I had a hard time sleeping on a regular. I had a hard time focusing and concentrating, and just everything was deteriorating. I really thought that I was going to have to do things like update my will. I was trying to think of what would my last words to my family be. Um, but I'm eternally grateful for learning about the carnivore diet, so it doesn't have to be like that, not for a long time to come. So when I say that I've done the research, I am not saying I just watched some guys on YouTube and they said this, so this is fact. No. What I am saying is I've studied history, I've studied the medical journals, I've read through thousands of testimonials from every walk of life, I've studied up on macrobiology, I've studied anatomy, I've studied endocrinology, I've studied biochemistry, pathology, immunology, neurology, I've studied hematology, I've studied oncology, nuclear medicine, orthopedics, I've studied gastroenterology, internal medicine, surgical techniques and surgery. I've looked into gastroenterology. I think I mentioned that. Oh, yeah. And dermatology. That's the other one. So I've studied what happens to every particle that goes into your body, what it does, how your body reacts to it, how it behaves, what your body wants, what it doesn't want, what it accepts, what it rejects, how it behaves, how the particles that you ingest behave in your body, how your systems react to it, how those particles are utilized or discarded, and what, if anything, happens that causes it to be, left behind in your system, and what after effects there may be as a result. So if you're curious about any of these topics, let me know. I've been studying all of these topics for several years at this point, before jumping into carnivore, as I dipped in and out of keto before I went full carnivore. So I've studied all these topics to an extreme degree. And while I may not be as knowledgeable and articulate as Dr. Chaffee or Sean Baker or Ken Berry or any of the others, there's quite a bit that I know as a normal, everyday human being, just because I decided to do the research for myself. So I hope this encourages you. Let me know, like, comment, subscribe. Go ahead and let me know if there's anything that you would like to learn about the carnivore diet or about my journey, and I'm more than happy to help. God bless.